Did you know that Japan has the highest number of centenarians per capita anywhere in the world, with over 90,000 individuals living beyond the age of 100? While in many Western countries, particularly the United States, people are investing thousands of dollars each year into gym memberships, specialized training programs, and trendy fitness routines, Japanese elders in their 70s and 80s are quietly outliving nearly everyone else on the planet. What truly startled researchers at Harvard Medical School, after following these so-called super-agers for 5 years in a row, was that their longevity could not be explained by diet alone. Nor was it solely a matter of genetics. Instead, the secret appeared to be hiding in plain sight: 6 remarkably simple movements integrated into their daily lives. These movements are not what we would traditionally call exercise. They are not strenuous workouts, nor do they resemble the type of physical training most people think of when they imagine fitness. In fact, Western doctors initially dismissed them as insignificant, too basic to carry any measurable benefit. But brain scans told a very different story. Japanese elders who practiced these daily movements demonstrated 40% less cognitive decline than their Western counterparts of the same age. Their joints retained flexibility for decades longer. Their balance systems functioned at levels comparable to individuals 20 years younger. At Stanford University, researchers went so far as to call this phenomenon the most overlooked aspect of longevity in modern medicine. You are about to discover these very 6 movements. We will begin with the simplest and progress step by step to the most powerful. But I must pause to give you an important note. The very first movement on the list, number 1, has been associated with extending life expectancy by an average of 7 years in a large-scale study involving 15,000 Japanese seniors. Despite its remarkable effect, surveys show that nearly 90% of Americans have never even heard of it. What makes this movement even more astonishing is its accessibility. It requires no special equipment, takes only 2 minutes to perform, and yet neuroscientists have found it activates more regions of the brain simultaneously than any other physical activity they have measured. Before we explore these 6 remarkable practices, I encourage you to take part in this discussion. In the comments below, share your age and where you are watching from. As a health professional, I make it a point to review these insights carefully, and our team will be reading and replying to every comment. Your perspective matters. Now, without any further delay, let us begin with number 6. And do not let the ranking fool you. This practice forms the very foundation upon which Japanese elders build their daily routines, and in many ways, their extraordinary longevity. Movement 6. The art of slow walking, Sampo. Let us begin with something that may at first appear too simple to make a difference. Yet in Japan, elders treat it almost like a form of sacred medicine. This is Sampo, slow, intentional walking. It is not merely walking for the sake of movement, and it is certainly not the Western version of power walking. Instead, Sampo is a mindful, deliberate practice of walking at about half the speed one would normally move. For many older adults in Japan, this practice is integrated into their mornings. They typically engage in Sampo for 20 to 30 minutes every single day, often before breakfast. The crucial difference between Sampo and the forms of walking more common in the West lies in its combination of deliberate slowness and coordinated breathing patterns. The breathing technique follows a precise rhythm. You inhale for 2 steps, hold the breath for the next 2 steps, and then exhale slowly over the course of 4 steps. This rhythm is not arbitrary. It creates a physiological harmony, synchronizing the cardiovascular system with the nervous system in a way that faster walking simply cannot achieve. A landmark 2019 study from Kyoto University followed 3,000 seniors over the age of 60 for a decade. The findings were striking. Those who engaged in daily Sampo demonstrated 62% less arterial stiffness compared to the control group. On average, their systolic blood pressure decreased by 12 points, while their diastolic pressure dropped by 8. These are not small improvements. They represent clinically significant reductions that directly lower the risk of heart disease and stroke. But the cardiovascular system is not the only area impacted. What makes Sampo particularly fascinating is the way it engages the body at the level of balance and proprioception. Because of the slower pace, Each foot has time to make complete contact with the ground, activating all 33 joints in every foot. This full contact sends a cascade of proprioceptive signals to the brain, enhancing spatial awareness and stability. Western participants who adopted Sampo for as little as 8 weeks demonstrated dramatic improvements in balance. On average, they increased their single-leg standing time by 45 seconds, an improvement that directly correlates with reduced fall risk in older adults. Practicing Sampo correctly requires attention to technique. With every step, you should focus on rolling through the entire sole of the foot, beginning at the heel, transitioning through the arch, and finishing with the toes. Your gaze should remain fixed roughly 6 feet ahead, not downward at your feet. The arms swing naturally but minimally, hands relaxed and fingers gently curved. The breathing pattern, although central, does take time to master. In the beginning, counting steps can be useful to maintain rhythm. Morning practice is particularly effective, as natural cortisol levels are elevated at that time, amplifying the calming effects of the exercise. There are also considerations for where and how to practice. Sampo should not be performed on a treadmill. The moving belt disrupts the natural mechanics of the feet and prevents full ground contact. Instead, varied terrain is best. Walking on grass, soil, or uneven paths activates stabilizing muscles in ways flat concrete cannot. In fact, a study conducted at the University of Tokyo found that seniors who practiced Sampo on natural surfaces had 20% greater joint mobility than those who walked exclusively on concrete. For those new to the practice, beginning with just 10 minutes per session is appropriate. Over several weeks, this can be gradually extended to 30 minutes. The aim is not speed, but intentional rhythm and awareness. In essence, Sampo is a form of moving meditation, one that unites breath, balance, circulation, and awareness. It represents the foundation of daily movement for countless Japanese elders, grounding their day in stability, calm, and physiological alignment. Movement 5. Daily stretching, Ragio Taiso. Every morning in Japan, precisely at 6:30 a.m., a gentle piano melody flows across the national public broadcasting system. This sound is not merely music, it is the signal for Ragio Taiso, or radio calisthenics. Millions of Japanese people, from schoolchildren to office workers to retirees, rise to perform this simple yet powerful sequence of movements, a tradition that has been in place since 1928. The name calisthenics can be misleading for Western audiences. Ragio Taiso is nothing like the high-intensity exercise routines one might imagine. It is instead a smooth, flowing sequence of 13 carefully designed movements, performed in exactly 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Each stretch engages multiple muscle groups, but unlike static stretching, the body is kept in continuous motion. No long holds, no forced positions, no straining. The goal is to lubricate the joints, preserve flexibility, and maintain whole body vitality through gentle rhythmic movement. Researchers at Osaka Medical College examined over 8,000 participants above the age of 60, comparing those who practiced Ragio Taiso daily with those who did not. The results were remarkable. Daily practitioners had 40% fewer falls, 55% less chronic back pain, and retained nearly full range of motion in both shoulders and hips well into their 80s. The science behind these outcomes lies in joint physiology. Dynamic movements increase the production of synovial fluid, the natural lubricant of the joints, by up to 30%. When movement is lacking, this fluid thickens and decreases, which leads to the stiffness, discomfort, and eventual joint degeneration, so often associated with aging. By maintaining dynamic flow every morning, Japanese elders effectively oil the hinges of their bodies daily, keeping tissues supple and functional. The sequence begins with a simple but effective gesture, raising both arms overhead while inhaling, then lowering them while exhaling. This action expands the chest cavity and enhances lung capacity. The routine then flows into arm rotations to mobilize the shoulder joints, gentle twisting movements that preserve spinal flexibility, and side bends that stretch the intercostal muscles between the ribs. The leg components include gentle marching in place and shallow squats, both of which sustain mobility in the knees and hips without creating strain. Throughout the entire routine, a natural rhythm is maintained. The heart rate rises slightly, enough to improve circulation and oxygen delivery, but never enough to stress the cardiovascular system. It is, in effect, a cardiovascular warm-up that simultaneously improves musculoskeletal health. Timing is a critical factor. Ragyo Taiso is performed immediately upon waking, often before food or drink. This practice capitalizes on the natural hormonal environment of the early morning, particularly the peak in growth hormone levels that occurs during sleep. At this time, muscles and connective tissues are especially responsive to stretching. The experience should feel fluid and pleasant, as if moving through warm honey. No bouncing, no jerking, no forcing. For those unable to complete the full routine, certain elements still deliver strong benefits. The opening arm raises and gentle twists alone can provide significant returns for minimal effort. Yet it is the complete sequence, repeated daily, that has built a national habit of resilience and vitality. In fact, many Japanese companies still incorporate Ragyo Taiso into their workplace culture. Employees gather before the workday begins to perform the routine together. Research on workplace productivity has shown that these employees take 30% fewer sick days than employees at companies that do not include this tradition. This small investment of 3 minutes yields large dividends for both health and productivity. Ragyo Taiso, then, is not just a cultural ritual. It is a carefully honed system for maintaining joint function, flexibility, circulation, and overall vitality. For Japanese elders, it is a lifelong habit, an anchor that supports mobility and quality of life well into advanced age. Movement 4. The Deep Squat Rest, Shinko Zuwari. If you walk through a Japanese park or garden, you will likely see elderly men and women resting in a position that many Westerners find almost impossible: the deep squat. Heels remain flat on the ground, the body is stable, and conversation or gardening continues comfortably for 10, 20, even 30 minutes at a time. For most Western adults over 60, holding such a position for even 10 seconds is a challenge. This is not merely about flexibility. The deep squat represents a fundamental human posture, one that has been largely lost in chair-sitting cultures. In Japan, however, seniors maintain this ability because they practice it daily, often accumulating 20 to 30 minutes of total squat time throughout the day without conscious effort. A groundbreaking study from the Tokyo Metropolitan Institute of Gerontology followed 5,000 seniors for 12 years. Those able to hold a deep squat for at least 2 minutes had a 70% lower risk of requiring assisted living. They preserved hip mobility sufficient for all daily activities, and they remained independent an average of 9 years longer than individuals who could not squat. The biomechanics explain why this posture matters so deeply. Squatting opens the hip joint through its full range of motion, preventing capsular tightening, a condition that leads to restricted mobility and the characteristic shuffling gait seen in many older adults. It preserves ankle flexibility, which is critical for maintaining balance. It strengthens the pelvic floor muscles, which are essential for bladder control and continence. Most importantly, it decompresses the spine, permitting nutrient-rich fluid to flow back into the intervertebral discs, nourishing them, and reducing the risk of degeneration. Harvard researchers have identified that cultures where deep squatting remains common experience 80% fewer hip replacement surgeries and 60% less chronic lower back pain. These statistics underscore how a simple posture, practiced regularly, can prevent decades of discomfort and dependence. For those who wish to regain this ability later in life, progressions are essential. One can begin by squatting with the back against a wall for support, keeping the feet shoulder-width apart and toes pointed slightly outward. Lower the body gradually, allowing the knees to track over the toes. If heels do not initially reach the floor, a rolled towel may be placed underneath for support. Start with 30-second holds, repeated multiple times throughout the day, and gradually increase both duration and frequency. The key lies in consistency. 5 separate 1-minute squats spaced across the day provide greater benefit than a single 5-minute squat forced all at once. In Japan, elders integrate this posture naturally into daily activities. They squat while waiting for a bus, tending to plants, or even watching television. They may use the position to access low shelves, to play with grandchildren at eye level, or to rest instead of bending over to tie their shoes. Each functional use reinforces mobility and independence, ensuring that the pattern remains ingrained for life. The deep squat is not an exercise in the Western sense. It is a lifestyle posture, a daily reinforcement of mobility, stability, and independence. Its preservation explains in part why Japanese elders remain active, self-sufficient, and pain-free far longer than their peers elsewhere in the world. Movement 3. Single leg standing, ashi. At first glance, the idea of simply standing on one leg might seem trivial, even laughably simple. Yet in Japan, physicians prescribe this practice with the same seriousness that Western doctors prescribe medication. For adults over 60, single leg standing is often recommended as a daily preventive treatment. In fact, it is so widely recognized that in Japan, health insurance can cover this practice due to its well-documented effectiveness. The protocol is straightforward. Patients are advised to stand on one leg for 1 minute, twice daily. Though simple in instruction, the results are profound. A 15-year longitudinal study at Fukuoka University tracked 12,000 participants. Those who practice single-leg standing each day experienced 68% fewer hip fractures and 75% fewer fall-related hospitalizations compared with those who did not. Brain imaging revealed increased gray matter in the motor cortex and cerebellum, regions critical for balance, coordination, and motor control. Why does this matter so much? When you stand on one leg, the body engages in thousands of micro-adjustments every minute to maintain stability. These tiny corrections do far more than train muscles. They strengthen the entire neuromuscular system. Proprioceptors, the sensory receptors that signal to the brain where your body is in space, become hyperactive and more precise. The vestibular system in the inner ear sharpens its responsiveness. Visual processing accelerates as the brain integrates inputs from multiple systems simultaneously. In short, a simple act activates a highly complex coordination network that protects against the physical and cognitive decline of aging. The recommended protocol begins with simplicity. Stand near a wall or a sturdy chair for safety. Lift 1 foot only an inch from the floor. Fix your eyes on a point approximately 10 feet away and breathe normally. Try to maintain balance for 30 seconds, then switch to the other leg. As balance improves, extend the time toward 1 minute. To intensify the challenge, close your eyes. This removes visual cues, forcing the brain and body to rely more heavily on proprioceptive and vestibular systems. Japanese elders often practice this while brushing their teeth, transforming an everyday activity into a functional training opportunity. In this way, 2 minutes of daily balance work becomes automatic, requiring no extra time commitment. As the skill develops, advanced variations can be introduced. While balancing, one might slowly turn the head left and right, extend the arms overhead, or make gentle circles with the lifted foot. Each variation challenges new aspects of balance and neuromuscular control. The principle of progressive overload applies here. When 30 seconds becomes easy, aim for 45. When balancing with eyes closed becomes manageable, progress to standing on an unstable surface, such as a folded towel. The benefits extend beyond stability. Researchers at the Mayo Clinic found that single-leg standing time is actually a better predictor of longevity than blood pressure or cholesterol. People over 60 who could balance on one leg for 30 seconds had mortality rates equivalent to individuals 10 years younger. For this reason, Japanese physicians continue to emphasize single-leg standing as a cornerstone of preventive health. It is safe, accessible, and remarkably effective, a daily prescription for stability, independence, and longer life. Movement. 2. Floor-sitting transitions, seiza, and beyond. Among the most overlooked habits that shape the health and longevity of Japanese elders is the simple act of transitioning between standing and sitting on the floor. For the average Japanese person over the age of 70, this action is performed more than 20 times a day. Meals, tea, television, social gatherings, so many moments of daily life take place at floor level. Each transition, from standing to sitting and back again, is a complex whole-body movement that sustains strength, mobility, coordination, and balance. Researchers at the University of Tsukuba conducted a large-scale study involving 10,000 seniors, comparing those who regularly practiced floor sitting with those who relied solely on chairs. The results were striking. The floor-sitting group possessed 40% more lower body strength and 50% greater hip flexibility. They could rise unassisted from the floor well into their 90s. Even more fascinating was the impact on cognition. Their cognitive test scores were consistently 15% higher than the chair-sitting group. The reason lies in how these transitions challenge the brain. The act of moving from standing to the floor and back up requires sequencing, balance control, strength modulation, and spatial awareness, all executed in coordinated harmony. This engages the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for executive functions, such as planning and problem-solving. In effect, every floor transition is both a physical and a neurological workout. The traditional method begins from a standing position with the feet together. One knee lowers to the ground, then the other, allowing the individual to settle into a kneeling posture, seiza. From there, a shift into cross-legged or side-sitting positions can occur. To rise, the process reverses. One foot steps forward into a lunge, weight transfers through that leg, and the body pushes upward to standing before bringing the other foot to join it. While the sequence sounds simple, it demands strength, coordination, and control. For those learning or relearning the practice later in life, modifications can make the transition safer. A low stool or ottoman can serve as an intermediate step, placing hands on the stool for support while lowering to kneeling, then gradually reducing reliance on the hands as stability improves. Practicing on a soft carpet or yoga mat minimizes strain on the knees and reduces the risk of discomfort. Frequency matters more than perfection. Even 2 or 3 transitions per day provide measurable benefit, while a dozen or more accelerate improvements in strength and mobility. Japanese elders do not perceive this as exercise at all. It is simply the way life is lived. By never abandoning the pattern, they preserve a capacity that many others lose. The importance of this movement extends beyond mobility. Studies have shown that the ability to rise from the floor without using the hands is one of the strongest predictors of longevity. Brazilian researchers found that those able to perform this task lived on average 6 years longer than those who could not. In Japan, floor-sitting transitions are seamlessly woven into daily life. They are not reserved for special occasions but repeated countless times as part of ordinary routines. This integration ensures that strength, flexibility, and neurological coordination are reinforced constantly, helping maintain independence and resilience well into old age. Movement 1. The towel twist, tenugui hibiki. At the top of this list is a movement so simple in appearance that it requires nothing more than a basic hand towel. Yet, among Japanese centenarians, it is consistently credited as one of the most important practices for maintaining vitality. This exercise, called tenugui hibiki or the towel twist, may seem modest, but scientific studies have revealed it to be extraordinarily powerful for both the body and the brain. The practice begins by holding a rolled towel horizontally at shoulder height, hands about 18 inches apart. The first step is to create tension by pulling outward as if trying to rip the towel in half. While sustaining this tension, the torso slowly rotates to one side, with the hips kept facing forward. The twist originates entirely from the core, not from the arms. At maximum rotation, the position is held for 3 seconds before returning to the center, then repeated to the other side. Researchers at Taku University conducted electromyography tests on participants performing this movement. The results were astonishing. Deep spinal stabilizers fired, intrinsic muscles of the feet activated, and even facial muscles showed increased activity. In other words, this simple twist activated areas of the body often untouched by conventional exercise. A 20-year longitudinal study involving 15,000 Japanese seniors revealed further evidence. Those who performed the towel twist daily for just 2 minutes lived, on average, 7 years longer than those who did not. Their grip strength, a clinical marker strongly correlated with independence and mortality risk, remained above the functional threshold until around the age of 92. Bone density was preserved at levels comparable to individuals 2 decades younger. Brain imaging produced even more extraordinary findings. The bilateral coordination required for the towel twist engaged both hemispheres of the brain simultaneously, creating new neural pathways. Participants demonstrated sharper memory, faster reaction times, and a significantly lower risk of dementia. The exercise is scalable. Beginners may use light tension and smaller twists. As strength and coordination improve, greater tension and deeper rotations can be introduced. Some elders even perform variations while seated or lying down. But the core principles remain unchanged. Generate tension, maintain control, and synchronize movement with breathing. Breath control is vital. During the return to center, inhale steadily. During the twist, exhale deeply. This breathing pattern activates the vagus nerve, which triggers a parasympathetic response, reducing inflammation and lowering stress. The molecular biology behind the towel twist explains much of its unique effectiveness. The isometric contractions it requires stimulate the release of myokines, special proteins secreted by muscles during contraction. These act like systemic medicine, reducing inflammation, improving insulin sensitivity, and even stimulating the growth of new brain cells. Research has shown that the towel twist produces more myokines per minute than any other tested movement. Timing further enhances its benefits. Many Japanese elders perform the towel twist immediately upon waking, activating the nervous system for the day, and then again before bedtime, encouraging recovery and deeper sleep. Just 1 minute in the morning and 1 at night is sufficient to achieve the full range of benefits. No special gym equipment, no complex choreography, just a towel and a few focused minutes. This seemingly simple exercise exerts profound effects on nearly every system of the body. From muscular activation to bone density preservation, from neurological resilience to systemic inflammation control, the towel twist embodies the extraordinary power of minimal, consistent daily movement. Conclusion: a redefinition of healthy aging. In the end, the revolution in our understanding of aging and longevity does not come from futuristic technology, expensive supplements, or elite exercise programs. Instead, it comes from recognizing the profound wisdom embedded in simple, natural movements, practices that Japanese elders have quietly preserved and performed for generations. The 6 movements we have explored: slow, intentional walking, sampo; daily stretching, ragyo taiso; deep squat resting, shinko zuwari; single leg standing, ashi; floor-sitting transitions, seiza and beyond; and the towel twist, tenugui hibiki, are not workouts in the conventional sense. They require no gym memberships, no specialized clothing, and no heavy equipment. Rather, they form a complete system that addresses every pillar of physical and cognitive health simultaneously: strength, flexibility, balance, coordination, circulation, and neurological vitality. Because they are woven seamlessly into daily life, these movements never demand extraordinary discipline or dedicated workout hours. They become habits as natural as breathing or eating. And the science supporting them is clear and overwhelming. Individuals who maintain these movement patterns age in a fundamentally different way than those who do not. They remain independent longer. They maintain sharper cognitive function. They move through their later decades with vitality and dignity, rather than merely enduring them. As a health and nutrition professional, I see in these practices a blueprint for graceful aging. The choice is ours. We can continue to follow Western paradigms that treat aging as a disease to be fought with intensity and resistance. Or, we can adopt these time-tested Japanese habits that frame aging as a natural process, one to be navigated with wisdom, patience, and respect for the body. The Japanese have shown us the way. Scientific research has validated their approach. What remains is your decision. Will you begin today, or will you wait until tomorrow to transform how you age? Now, I turn the question to you. Which of these 6 movements resonates with you the most right now? Which habit could you see yourself incorporating into your daily routine? Perhaps you have already tried one of these practices. Did you notice improvements in strength, balance, or mental clarity? Share your experiences and reflections. Your story may inspire someone else to begin their own journey toward healthier, longer living. Thank you for taking the time to explore these practices with me. The path to longevity is not hidden in complex formulas or expensive programs. It is here, in the daily movements that nourish body and mind, waiting for each of us to embrace.